Alright, in this video we're going to make this game more like a game. Which means that we are going to be creating two kind of manager classes, one called the level manager and one called the game manager. Now the game manager is responsible for accumulating points during the execution of the game, and it's going to be present through the entirety of the game, since when you start to when you end. Level manager, however, is going to be specific to each scene or level that is created. So if I jump into Visual Studio, let's start off with creating our game manager. Now the way I'm going to do this is going to be kind of weird. I'm actually going to create two game manager mono behaviors. One's going to be called game manager. The other one's going to be called game manager instance. Now I know it might seem a little odd as to why I would do this, but the reason is I want every scene in the game to have a game manager, but I don't want this is getting complicated even to explain. No matter what scene you start off with, for testing purposes, I want there to be a game manager created, but I only ever want there to be one. So what I'm going to do is my game manager instance will be something that you plop into a scene, and when it starts, all it's going to do is check to see if a game manager instance was created. If it has been, then it destroys itself. If it hasn't been, then what it does is it creates one and stores it into a property, a static property. So that way, even if you start off with the start screen, you'll get a game manager. If you start off with the end screen, you'll get one. If you start off with any level in between, you'll get one. But there'll only ever be one. And it also allows us to specify with the Boolean value whether this particular game manager is there for testing purposes. And that's going to be useful because when we launch a game, when we're testing like a scene, like a particular level in our game, we want that game manager to be in testing mode. But when we package up the game and you start off with the start screen, we want that game manager to be in production mode. And that flag can be used for a variety of different purposes.
Alrighty.
So my game manager instance will be a mono behavior, and it's going to have a public bool is, let's just say is debug. Sounds straightforward enough. And it's also going to have a public static game manager instance with a get private set. Oh, come on. There you go. Then I'm going to create a public void awake method. Now, like I said before, the awake method is going to say if instance is null, that means we need to create a game manager. So I'll say manager equals new game object, and then I'll say instance equals manager add component game manager, and then I'll say instance dot is debug equals is debug, and then I'll simply say destroy game object. So it checks to see if a game manager already exists. If it does, it just destroys itself. If it doesn't, it creates one and then destroys itself. So then what I can do is inside of the game manager mono behavior itself, I can go ahead and say public bool is debug get set, which will be set by the game manager instance, like you see right there. And also, what I'm going to do is on the public void awake, I'm going to say don't destroy on load game object. That means that when this game manager is created, it will not be destroyed. Now you might be asking, well, why don't I just leave it like this is and not have another game manager class? Why can't I just like put one of these game managers on each one of my scenes and say don't destroy on load? Well, what'll happen is every scene transition you have will make it so there's another game manager created, which we don't want. So the only purpose of this mono behavior is to store a static instance to our game manager. Now our game manager itself is simply going to be responsible for points and whether or not we won. So I'm going to say public int points and public bool did win with a private set on did win. Then I'm going to have a public void start game which will simply set points to 0 and did win to false. And finally, I'm going to have a public void endgame with a bool did win. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if is debug, then debug log you won, or this level, or something like that, or you just won, because there's a level manager that handles the other thing, and then return. Otherwise, I'm going to set did win to did win, and I'm going to say application.loadLevel end screen. Now, we can change this debug behavior whenever we want. Maybe you do want it to transition to the end screen if you're in debug mode, but in this case, I don't want to because I don't have an end screen. So we're just going to leave it like this, and then we're going to be putting together the end screen a little bit later in this video. But at least with this debug flag, it's already proved useful because we can simply return out of this method if we won or if we lost. Actually,
Very cool.
The game ended. You didn't necessarily win because the did win could be false.
Oh, that's true. There you go.
Okay, so now we have our level manager. Now our level manager is going to be another mono behavior that is responsible for keeping track of how much time we have left, as well as the next level that we can go to. So I'm going to say public float time left, and then public string next level. Now, pretty much all we need to do is we need to have a public void update method that decrements time left by time.delta time. And if time left is smaller than 0, then we're simply going to say game manager instance.endgame false. They lost the game. And so did everybody who's listening to this video. So, next up we have a couple other methods. Asteroid destroyed by player and waypoint hit by player. Asteroid destroyed by player, which happens when an asteroid... I mean, when do you think this method's invoked, Steve?
I don't know, Nelson. I admit it. I never know what's going on when we're in this.
Well, this method is invoked when the asteroid is destroyed by the player. Because that's the name.
Wow, that's... yeah. Really obvious.
Well, to be fair, it doesn't do anything yet. We'll get to the implementation here pretty shortly.
And to be fair, we spent a lot of hours, and my brain died hours ago.
Well, I'm sorry. So what I'm going to do here is asteroid destroyed by player is simply going to say game manager instance.points plus equals asteroid.level. Let's say you get 50 points per level of an asteroid that you destroyed. Again, you can change that to your liking, or you can change it on a per asteroid basis, or however you wish. Now, when the waypoint is hit by a player, we need to do a couple things. We first need to check to see if the waypoint next is null. If the next waypoint is null, that means we have finished the level. So we can say if next level does not equal null, then we can say something like if our game manager instance.is_debug, then we'll say something like debug log, you are moving on to the next level, or something like that. Otherwise, application.loadLevel next level. Otherwise, if the next level is null, we want to say game manager instance.endgame true, because they got through all of the levels in the game. Finally, we're going to say something like time left plus equals waypoint dot waypoint dot time. Where are you? It capitalized it again. Oh, waypoint.
I was going to say, look, you've got waypoint instead of waypoint.
I wonder what's on my mind. So time left plus equals time modifier.
Chocolate milk. I'm sure it's chocolate milk.
Yeah. Anyway, so now that we have that all set up, our level manager is pretty much complete. We just have to create one on every level. We can set a next level to go to. Again, I don't want to deal with application switching if we're in debug mode, but we can always change that depending on how you want things to behave with what you're building. So that pretty much wraps that up. Now what we need to do is we need to have our waypoint manager and our asteroid manager inform the level manager when an asteroid is destroyed or when a waypoint is hit. So we're going to go into the waypoint manager first, and I'm going to create a private level manager, which is simply going to find object type. There we go. Took a whole lot
come
longer.
on, Visual Studio.
Yeah, it took a whole lot longer to type than it should have, but regardless, what we need to do is when the waypoint is hit, when the player hit a waypoint, we want to inform the level manager that a waypoint was hit by the player. So that's simple enough. Now we have to do this same thing for the asteroid manager. So I'm going to go into the asteroid manager. I'm going to do the same sort of thing. I'm going to say private level manager, and then I'm going to say level manager equals level manager, find object of type of level manager.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a bad one. So then I'm going to do level manager on awake, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to where the asteroid destroyed method is. And when an asteroid is destroyed, we want to say asteroid destroyed by player asteroid. So that'll inform the level manager that an asteroid was destroyed by the player, which in turn tells the game manager to add points. Okay, so there's one more thing that we're missing. Inside of our, well, there's a couple things that we're missing, but one of the things that we're missing is inside of our asteroid class. When we hit a player, I want the asteroid itself to effectively blow up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say destroyable dot take damage, and the damage that I'm going to give it is going to be destroyable dot health, which will effectively always kill itself, passing in collider dot game object as the from. So if an asteroid hits something, it'll deliver this amount of damage to whatever it hit, and it'll destroy itself.
Okie dokie.
Okay, the next thing I want to do before we go ahead and test all this stuff out is I want to go into the player GUI class, and I want to add in a display of how many points the user currently has. We're going to add in a time component as well, but that's going to be done in the form of a progress bar that we'll write here in a moment. But I want to go ahead and add the points in real fast so we can test to make sure that the game manager is indeed receiving that information. So I'm simply going to say on GUI, say GUI.label new rect 10, 10, 240, and we'll just say X points. And X points is going to be game manager instance dot points. Okay, so now that we've done all this, we can jump back into the game and we can create our managers. So I'm going to create a game object, an empty game object, attach it to managers, and I'm going to call it level manager. And I'm going to attach the level manager script to it. I'm going to give us an initial time of 10 seconds. Then I'm going to create another game object and call it the game manager. I'll place in the manager's thing as well. And I will attach the game manager instance class to it, not the game manager class to it, and I'll set isDebug to be true. So now when I hit play, we see we have 0 points. Now we have 300 points. Now we have 750 points, and so on and so on. Let's make sure that we blow up asteroids by running into them. And we do. It's kind of a cool feeling, just running around.
Just smashing into asteroids.
Okay, that does bring up one more thing that has been omitted thus far, and that is when the player's health reaches 0, we want to end the game. So to do that, I'm going to jump back into our code. Now, if you recall, the player does have a destroyable script attached to it, which means I can listen to the destroyed message inside of our player. So I'm going to jump into my player class, and I'm going to say public void destroyed. I'll say game manager or game manager instance dot end game false. So let's see if that has any effect on this. So if I hit this, I take damage and take more damage and take more damage, and I died and the game ended. At least I got the debug message. The game didn't technically end because I'm in debug mode. Sound good?
But so far, so good.
Awesome. So we have points. We have the ability to lose the game. Presumably we have the ability to win the game. Let's go ahead and actually complete one round real fast. I still love these. Oh.
You can do it. You can do it.
Yep, I am moving on to the next level.
Woohoo!
Which isn't actually right. It should not say that. The reason it shouldn't say that is if I look at the level manager's source, it says if next level is not equal to null. This is actually a problem with Unity, with strings. Unity's not actually setting this to null, it's setting it to empty string. So instead of checking to see if next level is null, I need to say if string or is not string null or empty next level. Now it'll just end the game because there is no next level.
There you go.
Okay, so that's all of that fun stuff. Let's go ahead and put together a time progress bar. So going back into the player GUI, I'm going to create another progress bar. So private read-only progress bar, time progress bar. And I'm also going to need a reference to my level manager to know how much time is left. That's really easy to do because I can simply say private read-only level manager. Then inside the constructor, I can say level manager equals object dot find object of type of level manager. Now you'll notice something interesting about this. Oops, I have to do a cast. You'll notice something interesting about this line of code right here that's different from most of our other invocations of find object of type. And that is because player GUI isn't a mono behavior. It doesn't scope the static context in such a way that we can omit the object dot. Find object of type is actually a static method on the object class, which means that unless we're inside of a class that inherits directly or indirectly from object, we have to prefix this invocation with object dot. Okay, let's go ahead and do our time progress bar. So I'm going to say time progress bar equals new progress bar. Wow. Size is going to be, let's do new vector 2. Let's do an x of like screen width divided by 2f and a y of 10. And then let's do a position of, let's center it at kind of the top of the monitor, which is going to be basically screen.width divided by 2 minus screen.width divided by 4. Yes, that'll work.
Should work.
And then for the y position, I'm going to do 10. Then for my background color, I'm going to do new color. I already have a color chosen out, so let's look at those RGB values. It's kind of like a little yellow color that's going to burn my retinas. The RGB values for this is 247. Now remember, we have to divide everything by 255. The G value, or green value, is 244, which again, divide by 255. And the B value is 32, divided by 255. This is actually going to serve as our foreground color, not our background color. Sorry about that. Our background color, because that's the highly saturated burn your retinas version of it. Our our background color will be significantly more desaturated, which is going to only modify the blue component, it looks like. So the values are going to be 247F divided by 255, 247F divided by 255, and 213F divided by 255. All right, so that's our time progress bar. Now,
Lovely.
let's go ahead and update it though. So the max value of the time progress bar is always going to be set to the max value of the most time that has ever been available in our game. So I'm going to say time progress bar max value equals math.max time progress bar dot max value comma level manager dot time left. That way the max value of this progress bar will always be the maximum amount of time ever made available in this level. Then I'm going to say time progress bar dot value equals level manager time left. If I come back to Unity, hit play, maybe I should make it yeah, it's kind of hard to see, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm kind of hating that.
What do you think? I should maybe if I just completely desaturate it so it's effectively white in the background. White's going to be 111.
Or put an entirely different color background. Like green.
Does green go with yellow?
Sort of. It does here in Wisconsin.
That looks a little better. I don't know. You guys can play with that to make it whatever you want. Anyway, so now we have points and our time left, and when the time reaches 0, or if we die, the game will indeed end, even though we don't actually have any screen to go to show that quite yet. But we do get the little debug logs out, like right there.
All right, nice.
All right, so as far as our level manager and game manager go, that about wraps things up. In the next video, we're going to put our screens together.